Youngster You.
Cloud Nothings have just returned from touring their most recent studio album, The Shadow I Remember, which came out back in February, and today I have frontman Dylan Baldi here to debrief and talk a bit about the band. Dylan, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. So, you've been traveling pretty consistently for like a month, is that right?
Yeah, the tour is about a month long.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Was there anything in particular that felt different this time around after wrapping it up?
Yeah, there was COVID.
Right.
Not among us, luckily.
Yeah,
none
good.
of us ended up having it, which is great.
Very good.
That's the big worry for everybody at this point, trying to tour just in the world. But yeah, no, other than that, the shows all kind of felt the same. Crowds are still excited. We're still having a good time. So like the whole, on the grand scheme of things, everything was the same, and the whole last 2 years prepped me for the weird parts, so it wasn't that different. Yeah.
That's good. From what I understand, you all felt kind of burned out and exhausted after touring the last Building Burning a few years ago. So after such a long break from playing live, I'm kind of curious to know where your head's at now after this recent one.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, for us, we always try to do something to keep it slightly more interesting each time we tour. Cause like a lot of our songs tend to have parts that we can, improvise, I guess, for lack of a better word. There's
Definitely.
lots of long kind of jammy sections and stuff. And we'll have people from the bands we're touring with come and play with us. And we started doing that a lot more on this tour, actually. We had these two horn players from a band called Morning of Black Star that we just finished the tour with. They would come and play on some like the longer weird songs. And so we do stuff like that now, I feel like, or at least on these last couple tours we did for this record. Having that kind of thing going on a little more frequently kind of brought it. It's nice to have like a guest, basically.
Yeah.
It keeps you from getting burned out, basically, and
Definitely.
being like, oh, it's these three guys I'm in the band with for 10 years. I know what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
I know how they play. So it's nice to throw in an extra little voice in there. Yeah.
That sounds really fun. It's definitely something kind of different for the audience too. Kind of a change of things. I've been to a lot of concerts lately, and not any recently that I can remember where the headliners have done that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's just fun to play with other people, and like we're on the road together, so why not?
Yeah, definitely. I actually got to see you guys up in Philly back in late August. I think that was toward the end of that short first leg, if you can call it that.
That's where I am right now, actually. That's where I live.
Cool. So not far.
What do you know?
Comparing kind of the two pieces of that tour, was there any one that you liked better? Because I think that first run was only like 10 days or something like that.
That was pretty short, yeah. And this, the most recent one was long. And it started, we played on a cruise at the beginning of it.
Oh, wow.
Which was like, just like there's not much to do on a cruise other than like drink all day, basically. So it was just a pretty wild way to start the tour.
Yeah.
It was kind of exhausting right off the bat. And it kind of, that exhaustion might have carried through for a little while,
Right.
For the normal shows. So I think the first little run, that was kind of exciting, I guess, to do. Like first thing after COVID, first thing after people are allowed to tour again. I kind of liked that little run a little more just because it was shorter. By the end of this one, I was pretty tired. I was ready to go home.
Yeah.
But that's cool. You saw us in Philly. I feel like the audience in Philly is always like a little like mad at us or something. It's really strange.
Yeah.
There's certain cities that are like that, where like no matter what we do, like we'll finish a song, like even like songs that I know people like, like art, like hits or whatever. We'll finish them and it'll be like nobody knows the song. It'll just be like, it'll feel so weird. And that show kind of felt like that. It's funny you were at that one.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say that was I didn't want to say, but it was kind of a weird vibe that I got from that show. I just remember coming back from it, and because usually I go to shows around DC, and I just made the drive up because I wanted to see Cloud Nothings, and the people would ask me how it was, and I was like, yeah, it was a little odd, but it was a good show. But yeah, it's kind of a weird vibe from the crowd.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, yeah, we always like play okay, we're not like a bad band. And that's why it's always confusing to me, just the way different cities, I guess, and people react to the same show, essentially.
Yeah.
We're not doing things drastically different from place to place. And we'll play something in, like, where were we? The night before that, we were probably in like Columbus or something, and the show was, people were like happy, kind of just like normal.
Yeah.
And the crowd in Philly is really antagonistic for some reason. I don't understand why.
Yeah, I guess Philly's just that way. I've been to a few shows up there, but yeah, it's always the same. Other than that, was there a most memorable or favorite experience of this last tour?
Yeah. Ooh, what's the best experience? Well, you know what was great, that I wasn't really prepared for being great, was we played in Kansas City, Missouri. And that is like a legendary jazz town, you know, and I really like jazz. And there's a bar there called the Green Lady Lounge, that we went to after our show. And there was this like incredible, it's like a real old style like jazz bar. It's been around forever. It's like just dark and jazzy, and it's cool. And we went there, and there was a really, really great jazz trio playing, like Hammond organ, guitar, and drums.
Oh wow!
And I can't remember their name. But yeah, we just like went there after the show and sat around and watched these like incredible musicians play for a while. And that was probably my favorite thing we did on the tour. Yeah,
that's really cool. Do you go to a lot of jazz clubs like that? I've been meaning to go at some point. I just never have.
There's one I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and I play saxophone with some people back there like fairly often.
Oh, awesome.
Including the drummer actually, Cloud Nothings. He and I have like a little jazz duo we do together. That's
really cool.
It's not like, it's like free jazz. It's pretty obnoxious. But there's a jazz club in Cleveland called the Bop Stop. That's kind of like, it doesn't have like a long storied history or anything as far as I know. But it's Cleveland's like, you know, kind of cool jazz club. And I would go there fairly often when I was living there because there was always good stuff going on. And yeah, I played there a bunch, and I like little jazz spots.
That's really cool. It must be like kind of a good escape from, you know, jamming with Cloud Nothings. Haven't been doing that for quite a while now, actually. It must be pretty cool to get out and do that.
Yeah, it's fun, you know, and I just like playing, I kind of like improvising, essentially, you know, like that's seeping more and more into Cloud Nothings in a way too. So yeah, I think the things will fully merge eventually. We'll see what that sounds like.
Do you foresee any jazz elements or saxophone in particular making its way into any Cloud Nothings tracks?
I want to do something, I think whatever the next record we make, because I'm pretty sick of just writing like 3-minute songs or something. I feel like I can't keep doing that anymore, or I will go crazy. So I want the next thing to do to incorporate like a lot of the different people we've met, you know, throughout the years, because we've met all sorts of in tour with all sorts of like incredible musicians who aren't just, you know, people just don't care about them for whatever reason. So I would like the next record to probably incorporate those people and try to make like something where it's a little more open and free, I guess, rather than these like tight regimented songs. Yeah,
that'd be refreshing. We were just talking about Cleveland a little bit, and that reminds me, so you actually played that home show in Cleveland last Friday to close out the tour, which must have been a really fun way to close it out. Do you find that with those closers you're kind of struggling to keep the energy up by then, or are they more of just an exciting sort of culminating moment?
It depends where the show is.
Okay.
So the one in Cleveland was nice, you know, because it was like, you know, a bunch of family was there, a bunch of friends, people I haven't seen in a long time.
Definitely.
And that was nice, you know, and that always makes it feel a little more like a celebration rather than like a thank God we're done kind of thing. So yeah, I liked, you know, the one in Cleveland was really good actually. But, you know, if we end this, like we have a tour coming up in Europe where we're going to end in Belfast, Ireland, where we've never played. I don't know anybody, and we'll have been in Europe for like a month and a half. I have a feeling that one might be a little bit like, can we just get this over with?
Yeah.
But yeah, the Cleveland one was nice.
Are you nervous about that Europe tour at all, just with the pandemic still being so uncertain?
Yeah, because, you know, it'd be one thing if we had someone in the band had gotten COVID on this tour. You know, it's a little easier to be like, let's get home, let's get away from this, and like end it, and, you know, figure things out from there. When you're in Europe, I don't know what the protocol is over there. So we'll, you know, fingers crossed, everything goes okay. Yeah.
And speaking of the pandemic too, it hit just a few weeks after you wrapped up recording this most recent album, right? So that would have delayed its initial release date, I think, for like a year before it finally came out. So having just come off a long tour playing the album, are there specific areas you can point to where your writing style or sound as a band has changed or maybe developed in the course of that year?
Well, we're playing pretty faithful versions of those songs, I feel like. But we did, throughout the whole pandemic, our drummer Jason and me, were through email, because he lives in Cleveland and I live in Philly. But we would email each other stuff back and forth, and we put out like 12 EPs over the whole time, among other things. We put out a couple records. We did a lot, actually, a lot of just like internet recording, essentially. And it was, I don't know, it almost felt like the older way of doing things that I used to do, where that was like how I would make songs. Basically, I would write some stuff and just like hang out with Jason, and we'd just play together for a little while, and that would be the song, rather than having anyone else involved. So it almost was like a little throwback to an earlier time. And I feel like I saw a lot of people kind of saying like, oh, I felt like I was back in high school, in the pandemic or whatever, because there's nothing to do. You're stuck at home. All you do is like, all I did basically was, I had a weird job actually for a little bit. But other than that, I would just like kind of listen to music all day, or like do things that were just sort of like the way I did things when I was 18 or something. So I think even the writing style kind of reverted back to that sort of process for a little bit.
This is like super off topic, but what was that job?
You actually just saw a glimpse of it before my face showed up on the screen.
Okay.
I worked for this thing called Planet Depots, which I should really change that picture. But I don't do Zoom too much. Right. But I was our bassist got me this job because he also did this, and he only quit recently. I quit pretty quickly into it. But I had to be the Zoom technician for court depositions, so like it would be, two lawyers would pop on the screen, and the two other people and someone who was like suing someone would be there, and it'd just be like a real normal like court scene. And if someone's mic wasn't working or whatever, I have to be like, can you like turn it off and on? Can you like sit closer to the computer? I was like, it's a fake job basically. It's so weird. But I did that for a little bit because I needed some money.
Yeah, well,
but yeah, not recommended.
Well, I mean, I've had technical difficulties with Zoom sometimes, so now I know I can come to you if I need it.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I'm experienced.
Back on track, though. I know you guys released a lot of stuff during the pandemic when no one was really doing anything, and Black Hole Understands was kind of like the big piece, I feel like, just kind of a home-recorded album. What made you decide to hold off on releasing Shadow I Remember and put that one out instead so the other could get a proper release?
Yeah, the weird thing is Shadow I Remember the whole time was supposed to come out when it came out. The label we put it out with, Car Park, just had a really full schedule until February of this. Was it this year or last year? I don't know. But whenever it came out, that's when it was supposed to come out. Car Park was just busy with a bunch of other bands and records, and that was fine with us. We were going to tour, just do something, in the meantime. And then we couldn't. And that kind of, the life that we created for ourselves, our jobs essentially became this band, and that was touring. So in lieu of touring, we're like, I guess we got to make a lot of music see, if that can fill that void in any way. So that's how Black Hole came out and all the other stuff. Yeah.
That's cool. And I noticed like it's not on like Spotify at all, and that to listen to it on Bandcamp, you have to like buy the album. Was that like intentional so you can just kind of have something over the pandemic?
Yeah. Yeah, we might put it up there eventually. But I don't know. I feel like, a lot of people don't even know that album exists.
Yeah.
I think, like fans of the band, probably because it is so like limited accessibility. But I think, I don't know. I kind of like that about it actually. That, I don't think everything needs to be everywhere all the time.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. It makes it kind of exclusive and something special for maybe the more dedicated fans. I think it'd be cool to like see that more out of like other bands too, just with how important I think fans are to the picture.
Yeah.
On the topic of writing a little bit too, so this band started a while ago as mostly a solo project of yours. So do you still do most of the writing, or is it more of a collaborative process like what you saw over the pandemic a little bit?
I would say I still do most of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, it's not super collaborative in really any way. But we will like get together and like work on songs that I have written, and then when we do that, it'll like make it kind of clear, like, oh, this part has to change and that part has to change.
Okay.
It's not like, it's almost like a group, like, obviously this is supposed to be different. It's like, It works when I play it alone, but when everyone plays it together, there's certain things that happen and certain like dynamics within the songs that will like just kind of naturally happen, where if I was just playing alone, I'm not sure I would be able to hear that or even do that by myself. So that's where the collaborative part is, I guess. Yeah, just kind of changing like the tone of things, more or less. Yeah.
Okay. And speaking of collaborations too, I wanted to just briefly revisit that collaboration album that you guys did with Waves. So do you still have like a relatively good relationship with Nathan Williams?
I mean, we don't really talk super often.
Okay.
But we did make that record. And his brother produced it, and I liked we were just stuck together in Nathan's house for a long time. So it was fun. And I still talk pretty often actually to the guy who kind of helps run Ghost Ramp.
Okay.
Nathan's label, and was kind of around a lot. This guy named Patrick McDermott, he does ambient music called North Americans. That's his like solo project, I guess. And I still talk to him pretty frequently, and he knows a lot of my friends in like LA and stuff. So I talk to him. That was probably the big relationship out of that one.
Okay. Well, that's cool. And I think the main sort of note there that I wanted to address was that your bands are like still often compared to each other. And I think there is a bit of a parallel too, because there are some like good similarities. Like recently, like you guys both put out new albums this year for the first time in a while. You both just finished touring those albums within a day of each other, actually. You definitely have your own styles, though. Yeah, like I think the last show on the Waves tour was Saturday, and yours was Friday, so it's
that's
kind of
crazy.
weird. Yeah, and I went to see him too. But anyway, is that a comparison you're fond of, or not so much? Because you guys are obviously very different in terms of, well, very different, but have your own styles. And
yeah, I think I'm a little more low key as a person, but yeah. I think I like when I was in high school, I really liked that first Waves record and stuff. That was kind of like right around the time I was really getting into music. And like I'm so bored or whatever the song was. Whatever record that was on, I loved that. And I was getting into them, and like there was a lot of good bands in Columbus, like Times New Viking, and like Psychedelic Horse Shit, and a lot of stuff from around that time. That Waves kind of fell into that little scene, at least on the internet it seemed that way.
Yeah.
Whether anyone knew each other or not, I don't even know. But yeah, that was like a big influence and kind of almost like inspiration for me to be like, oh, I could do this. It's just like one guy alone, and the music sounds pretty bad. Like I can make something that sounds like this, I think. So that whole era of music definitely was a big kind of jumping off point for me, just being like, oh, you don't have to sound good, and as long as you can like kind of make a song, people will find it and respond to it somehow.
Yeah. You mentioned like making new relationships through collaboration. Are there any like fundamental relationships that you've made along kind of your journey with this band that you're especially proud of, that have maybe helped you a lot?
Honestly, it's just shocking to me that we're all among my own band. Like there's 4 people in it now. There were 3. It's been a little different here and there. But that we're all just still like friends.
Yeah.
And that like when we're not touring, like we still want to just hang out with each other,
That's really
like
cool.
I kind of think that's impressive in a way, because I know a lot of bands who, even when they just start the band, like they don't know each other and they're not going to be friends. And it's not good. Like that also just like a tour like that with people you don't really know very well, who you don't even get along with. I couldn't imagine that. That would be miserable for me. So I feel pretty grateful that I, am the like best friends basically with the guys in my band still. Like that's very pleasant.
That is really cool.
Because it doesn't always work that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too that even though that most of the writing comes from you, the chemistry is audible, and it has like, that's kind of the staying power of a strong group. And I was reading about the most recent album when it came out, and I read an article, it might have been an interview that you did with Paste magazine, and they actually called Cloud Nothing's just quoting here, the most reliable meat and potatoes rock group since Spoon, which I thought was kind of a interesting comparison to make. So what does that mean to you, and do you agree with that?
Well, if it were true, we would be as big as Spoon, and I would have more money. But yeah, no, I think that's a nice thing to say. And we are pretty, it's very basic building blocks that create this band. It's just guitars, bass, and drums, and very rarely is there another sound on the records. And that is almost on purpose, or at least it was at first. And then it kind of just became like, well, I guess that's just what we do, trying to find new ways to organize these, very basic elements that people have been using for, I don't even know how long, like 60 years or whatever. And just trying to keep that same original inspiration, but moving in different directions with it from record to record, rather than repeating exactly the same thing. Meat and potatoes. I don't know. I don't eat meat, I guess. Yeah. So I'm not sure what I think about that actually. Yeah.
So it's valid.
Yeah, it's valid. Yeah.
And something too they're probably getting at there is that Cloud Nothings is now a pretty seasoned touring and recording entity. So with that is there anything that immediately comes to mind in terms of lessons learned over the course of your time as a band?
I was thinking about that recently, actually, because it's been a long time since we have had a show where we fell apart, basically, where something just went so wrong that there was no coming back. And that, not that happened all the time, but occasionally that would happen. Back when the band sort of started getting popular or whatever, 10 years ago. Now we are reliable in a way, or at least when there's a mistake or something, we've kind of faced every bad situation that could happen musically, during a show or something, or while making a record. So we know how to handle every little thing. And everyone, I said we're all still friends and stuff, but that doesn't mean we don't you can be mad at your friend.
Yeah.
But you can also kind of, if you've known someone long enough, you can tell when it's coming, so you can kind of fend it off before it gets to any kind of boiling point.
Definitely.
So I think that's a healthy thing. Also contributes to the fact that, we've been around for a minute. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Kind of back to the album a little bit. Similar to your previous releases, Shadow I Remember is discernible. It's its own thing. I know recording was a while ago now, but was your approach to it any different than the records you had done previously?
It was a little more rushed, actually,
okay.
Than the last few, because we wanted 6 days to do it with Steve Albini in his studio in Chicago, but we could only find a little section of 5 days. There was no 6-day window, so we just were all right, well, we'll see if we can do it. So we went there, and I feel bad. He had to stay up really late the last day. He had to go do something. I don't know. I felt bad. I felt like we were annoying him. But he's too nice to be fuck you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of a little hurried process. And I think that does kind of come across in the album, because it is a little, it's muddier possibly than the last, at least the last Albini record we did was Attack on Memory. And that one's pretty clear. And this one, I think, just because we were let's just go. I'm okay, sounds good. Let's move on. Things kind of are a little more squashed in the mix or something than they were. But I think that, that's just how it was. And then there was a pandemic, so it didn't even matter. Yeah.
So I had a couple just kind of random questions that didn't really fit into a particular category, but I thought were relevant. So I thought this was kind of an interesting question. I think cover art is actually kind of important because it's one picture that you associate with the feeling that an album gives you. I've noticed most of your album artwork displays these vast expanses or scenery with small text or none at all. So how would you say those images fit into what you try to create with each release?
I just always try to make it a picture of something that was important to me or on my mind, basically during the writing process or some portion of the creation of that album. So each one, And this only started with Attack on Memory, because before that they were a little different.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Attack on Memory, I think that was like the cliffs of Dover in England, where we got stuck for a day, and we just had a really weird day there. And it was very memorable to me for some reason. And that picture really encapsulates a certain period of my life to me, that little like lighthouse or whatever. Here and Nowhere Else was, I was living in like this apartment in Cleveland, and that was just my view out the window that I just saw every day while I was working on stuff. And,
wow. And
I was also very like back and forth between Cleveland and like other, like another, I was kind of like half living in France at that time. It was a weird time. So like just having that like solid grounded like view of this one place that also kind of looks like probably not Cleveland, that kind of like meant something to me. So that picture ended up there. Life Without Sound was, I'm just giving you a rundown of all these. For
they definitely seemed intentional, so I wanted to know about it.
Yeah, Life Without Sound was a picture from, I went to Jamaica for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
While I was working on ideas for that record. And that was just like the really nice view that I had when I was there. So that seemed relevant. What's after that? Last Building Burning. That was just some... That record's funny. But we recorded that at Sonic Ranch, this crazy studio in Texas that's like half pecan farm, half rich guys, like playground, half studio. It's really crazy. I don't even know how to explain that place. But we ended up just like goofing off for a while because we had a lot of time there. And that was some targets on a log. That's the picture of Last Building Burning that we were just like shooting with guns. And that seems relevant to the album.
Yeah.
And then the most recent one is what's it called? The Shadow I Remember. Yeah. And that one, that's this trail. And I got really into running while we were making that record. And I would just like run really far all the time, up and down this trail in Cleveland called like the Canal Towpath Trail. What was it called? Erie Canal Towpath Trail. And I would just run up and down that trail all the time while I was, listening to demos or just doing whatever. So that ended up being a nice little memory there. And that's why that's the cover. Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, I don't know. It's always just something that's like important to me.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's a great little like kind of window into where you were, at the time of your life when you were writing. And because you don't want to ask too much about like what was your meaning, behind this song or whatever, because it should mean something different to everybody. Is there by chance one song from this most recent record or just in general that you would like people to kind of know your thought process behind, or would you rather just leave it all to the listener?
Well, I mean, the thought process behind songs is super boring in my experience, actually, because all I do is sit around, or not all I do, but when I'm making a song, I'll just sit around and like play guitar until I find something cool or that I think is good, and just like keep building off of it from there until eventually I somehow end up with something that seems like a song to me. And that's it. It's not like I'm sitting there like, I want to make this kind of song and I want it to do this. It's just like whatever I've been listening to, whatever I've been doing, kind of like ends up feeding into what I'm making at the time, almost subconsciously. And I'll just kind of follow little tangents until, songs start happening. And then eventually you realize like, I have like 10 songs. I guess that's a record, awesome. And you put that out. Yeah. Or I do, at least. I know a lot of people think a lot more about these kind of things. But I tend to do it a little more stream consciously. Consciousness. Yeah.
Interesting. And you mentioned running too, which can be kind of a meditative experience for people. Is that kind of headspace, like a sort of meditative headspace, something that you try to get into, or is it just like an idea pops into your head and you gotta write about it?
I guess I do try to, like when I want to like sit down and play guitar, I do try to make sure that I have like a little chunk of time where I know nothing else is gonna bug me, and especially now we got a dog recently, we bought a house, so there's all sorts of shit on my mind. So finding that little extra hour here and there is getting harder, but when I do have that time, it's like, okay, I don't want anything to bother me, I just want to be able to sit there and like kind of sound bad for a while until I find something good, and that's the hardest part, actually, kind of just like getting through like the garbage versions of all these songs until they turn into something that I like, and just kind of relying on the fact that like I've done it before. hopefully it keeps working, that I can like turn this kind of bad riff or whatever into something I actually like. And that's the struggle at this point. Yeah. I'm trying not to run out of ideas.
Yeah. I know we hit on this a little bit earlier, but has there been anything that's changed in the course of 10 years to your approach to writing or anything specific like music, lyrics?
Yeah. I mean, there's constantly little changes. And I feel like even just like if I get a new guitar or something, like that'll just be like enough of a reason for me to be like, got to make this song sound this way. It changes everything. Every little aspect of it changes a lot for me. So yeah, I mean, if I'm trying to think of like a concrete example, I think I used to, this is something that has changed like back and forth throughout the whole time, is I used to just sit down and try to write like a whole song all the way through. And I would do that. And then eventually it turned to the point where I would like sit down and just try to make one little section of something and be like happy with that. And then like keep making little sections and then combine all those later until that was like one song. Then I would get sick of that and be like, no, kind of just make it all, so that like that kind of little thing keeps changing here and there, or just finding new ways to, structure things or organize things. Yeah. Cause I feel like the one thing I don't really want to do is like repeat the song structure. I think about that more than the actual like melodies or something sometimes. Cause that to me is that's just something I like about our band. I guess that the songs are structured in ways that are kind of surprising sometimes. And I just want to be able to keep having that little surprise element. And that's not something you can like work for. You almost have to like forget what you're doing for a second and then be like, oh, actually this is kind of good. Like I like this weird little thing I did that was a mistake. And just kind of following that thread. So yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask one final question. I love hearing about those like different types of responses in terms of headspace and things like that. And this one's more open-ended. So what does the future of the band look like? What now?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I was, I guess, kind of already saying, like I do want to incorporate more people into it. Yeah. Because we have just, we meet insanely talented people constantly. And it's kind of weird to me actually looking back on it that I haven't thought to like include any of them into this process. That it's been such an insular thing. I think it'd be interesting to kind of open it up a little more and bring other people into it and just see where that goes. Yeah, because I've never, I've collaborated here and there on things, but it's either like I'm writing the song and like giving it to someone for something, or it's just full on like free improv where no one really knows what's going on. And I want to find some like mix between that where other people contribute ideas in a way that's not just like random. It's like something they worked on, and then from hearing that I can like edit something else out of that. I just kind of want to try adding other people to the mix, I think, and just still making it feel like Cloud Nothings, kind of saying like how I can do that. I don't know how to do it. I have no idea. So that'll be my little project.
That's great. I love that response. I'm really looking forward to that. Whatever you guys have in store next.
Well, thank you.
Those, of course. And thank you for, sitting down with me, answering all my questions. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Listen to Cloud Nothing's new album, The Shadow I Remember, if you haven't already. And if you're in the US and you missed them on this tour, maybe you'll see them with Pup in April. But if not, don't worry, because they will definitely be out again in no time at all. Dylan, thanks again. It's really good talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to talk to you.